What's going on, guys? Alex here with 814 ADC, and today I have a very long overdue review for you guys. Specifically, we're going to be talking about my Chris Reeve Knives Small Sebenza 31. Now, like I said, this has been a review that has been on my agenda for quite some time. I am filming this on, what's today, the 29th, October 29th, and I received this at the end of January earlier this year. So I've had this knife in the collection for 10 months, a little over 10 months. And it's been one that I just kind of wanted to do more of a long-term review because, not gonna lie, it has taken me a little bit of time to get used to the Sebenza and to grow an appreciation for the Sebenza and Chris Reeve knives in general. Chris Reeve knives are kind of, I feel like they're loved. I'm not going to say hated, but there's a very specific type of people that really love Chris Reeve knives. And I feel like you have to be, this isn't a very fidgetable knife. It is in its own way, but it's not, very drop shutty, and it's on, washers, and it's very tight tolerances. And it just has a specific, part of people in the knife community that this knife is for. But this is a very special knife for me because I was given this knife for my birthday this past January. And I had mentioned to my wife, before my birthday, like, there's two things that I collect. It's knives and Legos. And Legos has definitely taken a back burner to knives because, for one, I ran out of space. And for two, they're just like getting even more expensive, as is everything in today's world. But I told her, going forward, I would love for, to get a Lego set or to get a knife set for my birthday, because that's just something that I would really look forward to every year. Well, she took that, suggestion and ran with it. So she got, it was my wife, my parents, I'm gonna do two, my wife, my parents, my in-laws, my sister and her boyfriend, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and both sets of grandparents. So my wife's two sets of grandparents and my both sets of grandparents, they all pitched in money, gave it to my wife, and then my wife picked out this knife for me. And I had mentioned, I think some USA made brands before, and Chris Reeve just stuck with her, and she ended up getting me the Small Sebenza in a drop point. This is in Magna Cut steel, which I believe the HRC is like 63 to 64. So really, really well done, has a great heat treat on it. And like I said, it has just taken me a little bit of time to grow accustomed to this knife, grow accustomed and grow familiar with it. And now, it's not something that I carry every single day, just because I, obviously have, a decent little knife collection, and I have all kinds of pass around knives in, so I'm constantly carrying something different. But whenever I do grab this out of the case to carry it, it's always, I really enjoy it. I really appreciate it. Like, it makes me happy throwing this in pocket. And it's just, it's a beautiful piece of cutlery. And again, I know it's, not for everybody, and, people have had Sebenzas and have had Chris Reeves, and they've, not liked them, not vibed with them. And I get that, and I totally understand where, where you're coming from. And I think maybe for the fact that this is a really sentimental knife to me is a big reason why I enjoy it so much. But maybe just with me maturing, and, I realize in my collection, I have, 30 other knives that have the fidget factor that I'm looking for. So having this in there, not being as fidgetable, but still being like really satisfying to open and close and to cut with, has, made me like it even more. So yeah, I mean, without further ado, we're going to jump, I guess, into the review. I've kind of already given some specs away, but like I said, this is the Small Sebenza 31, which is an updated version of the Sebenza 21. I have the small version. They also make a large version. I'm happy with my wife went with a small because you guys know I'm, into medium-sized knives, and this one fits my hand perfectly. You have that beautiful stone-washed drop point style blade with the single thumb stud. You have a beautiful hollow ground blade there, nice rounded spine, curved spine, really nice. Of course, you have the the Chris Reeve, what do they call this? It's like the integral lock or something like that. It's basically a frame lock, which, if you don't know, Chris Reeve is like the founding father of the frame lock. So very cool there. I have thrown a Lynch Northwest deep carry clip on here, nice titanium clip. Still has the backspacer, nice pop of color there, but I did take the lanyard off. And then of course you can have a hole there for the lanyard as well. You know, there's no internal milling, but this is a pretty lightweight knife, you know, as it stands right now. Again, single thumb stud, which we'll touch on that in a minute, but as it stands, it's a pretty bare bones knife. Obviously I did throw that clip on there, which the titanium, like these machine clips are not cheap. I think I paid like 80 bucks for it. I'll leave a link both to Chris Reeve's website down below, as well as Lunch Northwest, specifically to the Chris Reeve like clip area. This one is the machine clip. I was going back and forth between the machined and the flat top machined, but I ended up going with this one. And like I said, it was like 75 or 80 bucks, which, you know, to me is expensive for just literally a clip, but I really wanted this one on there because I think it looks really great aesthetically. I had seen so many, you know, Instagram posts from different people that I follow having these clips on there, and they just look fantastic. I think, again, from an aesthetic standpoint, and having that deep carryability, which we'll touch on later in the carryability, you know, the carry section of this review, but it carries so much deeper. I'm not a fan of the standard clip that this comes on here, but again, we'll touch on that later. So some technical specs or measurements. Let me get it pulled up over here. So we have a blade length of 2.99 inches. We have a handle length or a close length of 3.98, which will be an overall length of just under 7, so 6.98. And honestly, like, I was a little bit shocked. I had never gotten on here and like technically looked at the specs of this knife before. But the fact that this is a sub 7-inch overall knife is crazy because it still fits in the hand really well. It's very, very comfortable. It's just a great compact size. So really, really happy again that my wife went with the small instead of the large. And then it comes in weighing 3 ounces on the dot. So 3-inch blade, basically 2.99, but 3-inch blade with a 3-ounce weight. It's fantastic. You know, this is the glass blasted. I think it's glass blasted, or this, I always get confused. It's, you know, my box is in, my box is buried in my knife box, if that makes sense. So I can't grab it out right now, but I think this is the glass blasted handle. You have sand or glass blasted. You guys can see it has some snail trails there. I believe this is from like the rivet on your jeans when you put it in your pocket. But it's held up pretty well. Again, I don't carry this 24/7. This is kind of a, you know, a Sunday special knife for me. I carry it to church. I carry it if we're, you know, dressing up and, you know, going out on a date night or something like that. I will carry it, you know, out and about. Like, I'm not afraid to use it. It just has kind of developed into one of those, like, it's a sentimental knife. And I just want to keep it as nice as I can, if that makes any sense. So before we move on, I'll give you guys a couple quick size comparisons. And I apologize, this might be a tad bit longer than I normally and just because there's a little bit more talking about the knife. But got the TRM Neutron 2 and the Spyderco Para 3. So 3 iconic American-made knives right here, in my opinion, but very, very, you know, similar to size in both of those. Next, we're going to talk about action, and of course, you know, it's a very glassy. I hate to use that because that's just such an overused term, but it is a glassy feeling. This gave me a little bit of trouble. I had to reset the pivot like 3 times. I took it apart, cleaned it, lubed it, greased it, because you do get like a little takedown kit. You get a microfiber, you get a Torx wrench, and you get a tube of Chris Reeve grease. So I took it down, took the knife apart, cleaned it up, greased it up, and threw it back together. And I had to really fight with this pivot to get it to stay in there with lock stick. Eventually it did, and I have it down to a pretty good, you know, detent. It's locked up real nice and tight. Of course, it's not going to be drop shotty. You can, you know, drop it like that and then down. I do that sometimes, but I don't really like shaking my wrist that much. So really, this has developed into, you can thumb flick it, as you guys can see. And that is nice and satisfying, I won't lie. It's very, very, you know, it has a strong detent, but just with the, you know, the way the tolerances are, it's meant to be sort of a slow roll knife. And honestly, I have developed into doing that. So half the time I thumb flick, and then half the time I slow roll out like that. You guys can see the thumb stud has kind of worn off some of its anodization from me flicking it. And that's another thing. The thumb studs are like notoriously known on Chris Reeve knives for being like kind of bad, and I understand that. Like, this thing is just really pointy. You guys can see there, really pointy. It honestly hurts the finger after a while. Oops. So one thing I would like to do in the future, because modding these is like, you know, a lot of people mod their Sebenzas, or Chris Reeve in generals. Chris Reeves in general. I would love to either get a better set of the dual lug thumb studs, or I would love to do a small Spidey hole. I love seeing models like that. And then eventually I would maybe like to get some milling done. But as it stands, the biggest thing right now is just addressing the thumb stud issue. So dual thumb studs, so I can reverse flick it, whoops, would be nice, or having a hole that I can thumb flick and reverse flick off of as well. But of course, you have that frame lock, plenty of lock bar access here. And the lockup is, you know, probably like 50%. You just push it out of the way. Nice, smooth. Again, I did clean this up. I did, you know, grease it. My finger keeps slipping off there. You can, at sometimes, if you have to give it a little bit of wrist, but you guys can see you can reverse flick it there with your left hand. But this is just kind of my bread and butter, with the occasional thumb flick. It is very, very satisfying. But again, that thumb stud is just easily the biggest annoyance that I've had with this knife so far. But action is great. It does take a little bit to get used to, like I said. Excuse me, but once you get it, you know, once you get it down pat, once you understand it, and you know, kind of, you have to have a little bit of a break-in period. And once you get that, I think it'll become even smoother and smoother, which is a good thing. Like, once you get out of the box, that's going to be the stiffest. That's going to be, you know, the most frustrating action you get with it. And as you use it, as you clean it, as you grease it, it only gets better and better over time. And like, it's still developing a good kind of wear and tear track, and a good, you know, good usability on the inside there. So action is good. I really, you know, have developed a liking for it, but again, it is more of an acquired taste. You just have to be patient with it, is what I'll say. You just have to be patient with it, and I think eventually everybody can at least, I think, appreciate what a Chris Reeve is and how the action is. But next up is ergos. Like I said earlier, for this being the small Sebenza, I can still easily get all 4 fingers on here. I even have a little bit of the knife sticking up out of the back there. You have a little bit of jimping here on this kind of slight thumb ramp, but feels really good in hand. You get a nice kind of natural restriction point down there with just the way the handle is shaped. And this is just a really, really comfortable knife to use. Pair that with a really nice hollow ground Magnum cut blade that is HRC'd to the gills. And this is just an amazing piece of cutlery. But again, very, very comfortable. Excuse me. Very, very comfortable. Obviously, the aftermarket lynch clip here is causing a little bit more of a hotspot area as opposed to the other clips that that come on it, or other clip that comes on it. But the way that the clip is, has no sharp edges, it's rounded nicely, no issues whatsoever. Honestly, like, can you feel it? Yeah, but it is tucked enough into kind of my knuckle crevice there to make it feel, not so bad. You could technically utilize this area as a choke up area, kind of a choil, but you are pretty much right on the edge of that knife, or excuse me, the edge of the blade. Yeah, it just feels good. You can obviously saber grip it, hammer grip it, pinch grip works good. Obviously, you gotta bring the knife up a little bit more to utilize the tip, but that works really well. The titanium, I really like that finish to it. I believe it, like I said, it's a glass blasted finish. Has a little bit of a slight texture to it, but feels really good in hand. And it's just a clean design. The Sebenzas have always been such an iconic look, in my opinion, and I think that they will just age so well over time because they are just so simple. I really love the Nkosi blade shape, so maybe in the future I could add, an Nkosi to go with my drop point. But as far as ergos go, they are fantastic. We're going to talk about carry real quick, which, looking at that, it's a Lynch deep carry clip, so you can just, knowing that and looking at it, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to get my Mighty Hanks here that is a Lynch collaboration. Slip that in. And bada bing, bada boom. That is how it carries. Really nice and deep in the pocket. Knife pretty much disappears. And again, I love that milled titanium clip. It's honestly just, you know, as much as I like it from a deep carry standpoint, like I mentioned earlier, I think that this is a fantastic aesthetic piece. As far as clips go, I know that there's other makers out there. So I believe Chris Reeve themselves just came out with a new updated like millet clip. I think Nice Guy Machine Co. I think has a clip for it. Rips Garage Tech has a clip for it. And I think there might be one other that I'm missing. But I liked the Lynch Northwest clip the most and the best. Again, just from an aesthetic standpoint, I think it looks like, for some reason, I love this angle of it. I love the lock bar side with the clip. I think it looks just really, really fascinating. It carries really well, slips out of the pocket really well. You have no flipper tab, no jimping, anything like that to possibly catch on. I've carried this in jeans. I've carried this in gym shorts. I've carried this in khakis or bird dogs. I think I've even carried this in sweats. I put this in a sling bag. It carries really well. 3 ounces. Really nice and slim and lightweight. But in such a powerful little package. Full titanium scales, American made. Sorry, Idaho made. Last time I posted this, I think I posted a picture of the lock bar here, or the lock side here, and I put like Idaho made, PA carried, or something like that as my caption on Instagram. And I thought I ate. Like, I thought that was just like such a sleek little caption, so I was proud of that. But yeah, carry is great. Plenty of aftermarket clips, and even if you don't want an aftermarket clip, you can just rock with what they give you. But again, I really didn't want a ton of knife. I think with the other clip, you have like that much knife sticking up out of your pocket. So I wanted, more security, more deep carry, and more aesthetics as well when it comes to this. So, yeah, I guess the last thing to talk about is price point and would I recommend this knife. So you guys know, you've been watching my channel for long enough, and if you're watching this, about Chris Reeve and Sebenzas and all those things. So it's not cheap on the website. So I think my wife got this from Blade HQ. I could be wrong, but I believe that's where she got it from. Obviously, like, this isn't like readily available. Like, I mean, it probably is at different sites with like different inlays. Like, you can get a wood inlay, a micarta inlay, different things like that. But they're small batch. They do, like, they'll make a batch of them and then they'll send them out to retailers and they'll do drops. So the best way to do that is just go to the link I have listed down below, and you can either find a dealer, or I guess you can order direct through CRK. But this specific version, just the plain Jane titanium drop point, goes for $425. And I'm being honest, before I had this, that was probably, I don't want to say never. I don't want to say I would never buy, this for $425. But I would probably pass it up and go towards, I've never spent $425 on a knife before. I think the most was like $350, $375, and that was on a MBK Sea Otter, like one of the earlier ones I had. I ended up selling that knife. I missed that knife. I would love to get it because I think that's a very, nice companion to have with the Small Sebenza 31. But I digress. This is the most expensive knife I have in the collection by a long shot, and it's fantastic. I really do like it. But again, it is an acquired taste. I cannot stress that enough. It is an acquired taste. You have to be patient with, giving it time, giving it effort. I sound like a marital counselor or something like that. But it really does. I feel like you have to just give it a little bit of time, and eventually it'll get better. Can I recommend it? Absolutely. I think everyone should at least experience a CRK in their life. And I think if you're, a true collector, I think that this is such a foundational piece of knife history. But it's still, in my opinion, that's going to be another thing. People ask, does this still stand up to today's knife world? Does this still hold its weight in 2025 with everything else we have in, the EDC space? And I think it does. Yeah, I really do. I like the bio here on the website. It says the idea behind the Sebenza was never wavered. It's been to craft the best pocket knife in the world, premium materials, paired with, oh, my crock pot's turning off. Paired with pristine finishes and a bank vault lockup, all with an incredibly light, precision-made tool. I think that's how it is. Obviously, it's gone from the 21 to the 31, so maybe in a couple more years, 10 years, it'll go to the 41. Who knows what that'll be? But I do think it's a great piece of, a great piece of cutlery. I love this knife, and I'm so thankful for my wife and my family for, being able to buy this for me. I was super excited. I had no idea that I was getting this because my wife, you know, sometimes I'll bug her and be like, hey, you get me a knife. Like, am I getting a knife? Am I getting a knife? And, you know, I'm pretty good at kind of picking at her, and she'll eventually kind of give me little slip ups, and I'll figure out, like, I consider myself to be a pretty good gift guesser, but she threw me for a loop on this. And when I opened it up in front of, like, we went out to dinner with my family and my wife's family, and when I pulled it out, I was just like kind of flabbergasted. Like, I was not expecting to be pulling this thing out, and she definitely, you know, surprised me with it. So I'm very, very happy with it. I think it's a great recommendation for, you know, a knife that, again, has been kind of a foundational piece in the EDC world. And I do think the price may be a little bit high, but I still think at the end of the day, I think you're getting a good value for it. A lifetime warranty, all those things you're getting with it. But yeah, so leave a comment down below. I really want to know what your guys' opinions are on Chris Reeve knives in general, as well as, you know, do you have a Sebenza 31, large or small, in your collection? If you do, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But I'm going to wrap this up now. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I greatly appreciate each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your morning, evening, day, night, whenever you're watching this. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.